Hello and welcome to this section of the playlist. So in the last video we talked about setting up the home page, register page and login page. So right now we're going to talk about how to actually use Django authentication and validation to create and register users, to create, register and login users into our website. So let's go to the register page, the HTML file. So we can see this is the form that is being returned in the front end, which is let's go to the view /register. So this is a form that is being returned in the front end. So we just need to edit it a bit. Let me change this from login to register. Right. So what we need to do right now is we need to take note of a few things. We need to take note of the fact that each input tag has a name attribute. This name attribute here, we can see name is equal to username, name here is email, and name here is password. Now what does this thing serve as? So it's going to serve as a unique identifier. Now what I mean is that we need to actually send all this information that the user is entering in the form to the backend. Now how do we send this to the backend? We're using these name tags as a unique identifier so that we can grab whatever the user has inputted into each of these fields using these unique identifiers in the backend. So right now I want you to just take note of a few things. Each input tag or input field has a name attribute. Here it is username, here email, and here password. And this is a form that is being rendered out in the front end. So let me just refresh that. Okay, I didn't save my change, so let's Control save and refresh. So register, and let's change what this button says to register. Okay, so this is how it looks like. So what we now need to do is we need to go to our views.py file where the main action is going to be happening, and we need to import a few things. So we need to import the user module. So I'm going to say from django.contrib.auth.models import user. Now we also need to import some other things. So I'm going to say from django.contrib.auth import authenticate login and logout. So we'd say authenticate login and logout. Now we're going to be using each of these libraries to authenticate the user, log in the user, and log out the user. So right now we are going to start writing code that is going to register a new user. So let's return back to our register HTML page. So here in the form we can see the form has been given a method of post. Now what does this mean? Because we are trying to send all this data that the user has inputted to the backend, we need to give it a method, or we need to give the form a method of post, because we're trying to post or send that data somewhere, which is the backend. Now that is what we need to do. Now the next thing is that in the register page we need to write some code to actually check if what is coming in is a post request, and if it is a post request we want you to register this user and save the user in our database. So I'm going to say if request dot method method, if request method is equal to post, then after doing this we now need to grab everything that the user had inputted into each field. Now this is where this name attribute comes into use. This is where we use it. So we need to first grab whatever the user has inputted into username. So what we're going to say is username is equal to request dot post dot get, and then inside here we're going to pass in the name attribute, which is username. So we'll copy that and we're going to paste it here. So this way we're able to grab whatever the person is sending from the front end. Now the next thing is the email. So we're going to say request email is equal to request dot post dot get, and then we're going to pass in email here. And then the last thing is password. So we are now going to come down again and say password is equal to request dot post dot get password. So now we've been able to grab all the data that this user has actually inputted into the form. And to prove that we're able to grab it, let's just test the form. Let's try out let's say print username. So now we're going to test the form, and I'm going to type in something in the username field, and it's going to be printed out right here in our terminal. So let's save that. But before we do that, there's something I want you to take note of. There's something we're supposed to add to this form, which is known as Csrf token. If we do not add Csrf token, the website is going to crash. So Csrf token is like a security feature that we need to add to our forms. So to show you that it's going to crash, let me just type in something random here, and something random here. Take note of what happens. Okay, let me just type in a good email. So at gmail.com. So once we register, you are going to see it says Csrf verification field request aborted. So we need to add this in order for us to be able to do this well. So let's go back to our code, and under here, under the form tag, let's just put this percentage signs and type in Csrf token underscore token. So right now, whatever we type in is going to be printed out here. So let's first go to our front end, refresh, and let's just type in something random here, like the PROTON guy, and then let's just put in some random email and some random password. Now once we hit register, it says we have an error. The WSGI request has no attribute post. So where are we getting this error from? In line 11 in our views.py file. So username request.post.get. Okay, there was an error. This is supposed to be in everything's supposed to be uppercase, request.post. So that is the error that we had. So let's save that and go back to our front end and refresh. So I'm going to type in something here again, the PROTON guy, and then I'm going to start putting a random email and a random password. Once I hit register and we go to the terminal, we can see the PROTON guy has been printed out right here in the terminal. So we are rest assured now that whatever we type in the front end is being sent to the back end. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to write some code that is going to create a new user and save it to our database. So what we're going to say right here is we're going to say new user is equal to request is equal to user dot object dot create user. Now we're going to put in here in quotes, and what we need to pass in inside here in quotes is we need to pass in some details, which is the username, the email, and then the password. So we're just going to say username is equal to username, email is equal to email, and password is equal to pass, is equal to password. So what we now need to do right now is we need to say new user dot save. Now once we do this and we try out our front end, we're going to see that this new user whatever the person enters in the back end is going to be in the front end rather, sorry, is going to be sent to the back end, and then the new user is going to be created. Now here it's supposed to be create underscore user. Let's not make any silly mistakes. So once we save that, we can try out in the front end to see if a new user is actually going to be created. But then there's something we need to do first. We need to create a super user so that we can access Django's admin panel. So let's break out of the terminal and then create a new super user. We do that by saying python manage.py create create super user. Now what we need to do is so we're getting an error right here, django.db.uses the operational error, no such table auth user. Now the reason why we're getting this error is because we have not made our migrations and migrated. So what we need to do to fix this error is we need to just say python manage.py make migrations. Now this is going to make migrations, and then what we need to say is python manage.py migrates. Now once we run this, it's going to migrate and save all these things to the database. Now what we can say is we can now create our super user. So I'm going to say python manage.py create super user. Now once we try this, it's going to ask us for username. So I'm just going to type in admin as the username, leave email blank, password. I'm going to type in admin, password, admin, and then hit Y. So our super user has been created automatically. Now I want you to take note of something. If we go to the urls.py file inside our projects folder, notice there is a URL path here showing /admin. Now this is the default dashboard that Django has given us. So if you go back to your browser, let's open a new tab, and if you go to that URL /admin and we press enter, okay, we need to run our server again. So python manage.py run server, I typed in something wrong, .py run server. So once we run our server again and we reload the page, we're going to see we have this default Django administration right here. So once we go to the users, we can see there is only one user, which is the user we just created here, admin. But right now let's try to create a new user from our front end. So let's create a username. Let's name it tpg. Email, let's put something random, and password I'm going to say tpg18. So once we hit register and we can see the page loaded, let's go back to the backend and reload, and we can see that a new user named tpg has been created, and this is the email we gave it, we entered from the front end. So now we've been able to write code that can actually create users and save the user details in our backend, in our database, sorry. So let's go back to our views.py file, and then what we can also do is you know how if you want to register on different websites and if your password is too short, it's going to display an error saying password is too short. The password must be at least 8 characters. We can also do something like that, and what we need to do is we need to import two libraries. So from here, Django.shortcuts import render. We also need to import redirect, and then the next thing we need to do is we need to say from Django.contrib import messages. So we are going to be using the messages library to actually flash messages in our front end. Now I am going to show you how to do that. So we're going to write code right now that is going to flash an error message below this register under here. It's going to check if whatever password the person enters here is, if it's less than 3 characters, and it's going to give an error under the register. So what we need to do is right here we need to write a conditional and say if len password is less than 3, then we need to give an error. So we're going to say messages.error. So we're going to say messages.error, that is, we want to send an error message, and then we pass a request right here. And after passing in request, we need to type in the message that we actually want to be displayed in the front end. So we're going to say password is too short, and then we can say password must be at least 3 characters. So the next thing we need to do is we actually need to now return a particular template, so that we need to return a template. We need to specify where we want this message to be displayed. So we're going to say return redirect, and inside here we're getting an error. Return redirect, and then inside this parenthesis right here we need to pass in the name of the URL that we want to redirect to. Now if we go to our urls.py file, remember we gave each of these URLs a name. So we want to redirect back to this login page and to this register page and display that error, and the name that we gave this register URL is register. So in our views.py we are going to say return redirect register. So right now we can test this out and see how well it works. So let's reload the page. Let's type in something. Let's type in test user, and then email, enter a random email, and we're going to type in 2 characters. But before we forget, we actually need to write some code that takes this message from the back end and display it in the front end. I'm so sorry, I forgot about that part. So right now we are able to actually send messages from the back end to the front end, but then we have no way of actually displaying that message in the front end in this register form right here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to write some code that's going to display that message inside here, which is the register front end page. So what we need to say is we need to use the Django templating language. We're going to say if messages, that is, if there's any message coming in. Now I want you to take note of this. Anytime you create an if tag, a for tag inside your front end, you should always close the block, an if block or an else, an if block or a for block. So we're going to say end if. Now what we need to do is we actually now need to write a for loop. So we're going to say this is where it's done, even from the official documentation on Django websites. This is where it's done. So we're going to say for message in messages. So we're looping through, and then remember we're going to put an end for. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create an h2 tag, and inside here we're going to pass in messages, and then let's just give it some brief styling. Let's give it a style. Let's change the color to fire brick because we want the error, we want it to be a red. We want the message that will be displayed to be red because it's an error. So we're going to say if messages, and then write this for loop inside. So let's put a BR tag here so that we can space things up real nice. So let's save it, and let's go to our front end and try again to register. Let's refresh, and in here we're going to pass in test user and email. Put a random email, and here we're going to pass in only 2 characters. So when we hit register, it's giving us an error. What is this? Let's go back and check what error we are receiving. So here we're saying if messages from message. Let's go to our views.py file and check well for what the error is. Okay, so I have seen the error that we made, or that I made rather. So in your front end, please, I want you to, if you made a mistake with me, I want you to change this. It's not supposed to be messages right here. I'm supposed to pass in message, because we're looping through it here, because we said for message in messages. So let's save that, and let's reload the page and try again. So I'm going to pass in some random thing here and a random email too, and we're only going to pass in 2 characters right here. So once we hit register, we can see we have this error. Password must be at least 3 characters. So that is how to use the Django messages framework to actually display or flash messages in the front end. So right now we've written code that can detect how long the characters, how long or the length of the characters that the person has inputted in the password input tab. So you can go ahead and play around with this and decide to add whatever you want, but for me I am okay here, and I'm going to leave it like this. So right now we've written code that actually registers a user. What we now need to do is we now need to write some code that is going to check if a user already exists, and if the user exists, it's going to tell the person to use a different username. Because you know how if you try to create a new account on Facebook and the username already exists, it's going to give you an error saying that username already exists, that you should use a different one. So what we're going to do right now is we need to write some code right here after this, and then we need to filter through all the users in the database and check if there's any user in the database that has the username that is equal to what the person entered from the front end. So what I'm going to say is we're going to create a variable and name it get all users. I'm going to equate that to users dot objects dot filter. I think I'm going to rename this this variable get all users by username. Yes, so I'm going to say the object the filter. We're trying to filter through the database and check if there is any user that has this username, whatever the person enters here. So I'm going to say user the object of filter username is equal to username. That is filter through the database and check through all the users and check for users that have this username, and check for the users whose username is equal to what has been written in the front end. So we're now going to write some code. We're going to write a conditional right here. We're going to say if get all users by username, that is if there is actually something, if this query that we wrote actually returns something, that means there's actually a user with this particular username in database. So what we're going to say right here is we're now going to return an error message again. So we're going to paste this here and say if get all users by username. We're going to change the error message to error username already exists. EXIST already exists. Use another, or whatever you want to name it, or whatever you want to type in. I mean, now once we save this and we try to register a new user that has a username that already exists in the database, it's going to give that error. So let's try to register a new user using username TPG. So we're going to come here and type in TPG, and after typing in TPG, we're going to enter a random email and random password. So once we hit register, we can see error username already exists, use another. So now we're able to check if a user with that particular username already exists. So that is all we are going to do for the register view. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to focus on the login page, which is the login view. So what we need to do is we need to now get whatever data that the person has entered into this form in the login page. So let's go back to our web browser and go to the login view. So right now we can see this is login view. So again, we need to take note of this these name tags that are name attributes that I'm given to these input tags. For here, for this place, for entering username, we have the name attribute of username, and for entering password, we have the name attribute of pass. And then we also have given this form a method of post. Now remember, we need to add Csrf token. So I'm going to come here and put this percentage signs and say Csrf underscore token, token underscore token. So we're going to save this and go to our views.py, and right here we're going to grab whatever the person has entered into the front end and send it to the back end. So it's the same process we're going to follow here. We're going to write if request dot method is equal to post. That is, if whatever request that is coming in from the front end is a post request, then we're going to say if request of method is equal to post. We now need to grab whatever they've entered into the form from the front end using those name tags that we give the input, using the name attributes that we give the name tags. So we're going to say username is equal to request dot post dot get, and then in parentheses here we're going to pass in uname. Why are we passing in uname? Because in the we're passing in uname because in the front end we gave it a name of uname. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to grab whatever the person inputs in this password field. So what we need to do is we need to say password is equal to request dot post dot get, and inside here we need to check what name attribute we gave it. We gave it a pass, so we're going to come here and pass in pass. So after doing that, we now need to actually check if this user exists in the database. So we're going to use the authenticate and login. We're going to use authenticate and login in this view. That is the libraries that we imported earlier. So what we need to say is we actually need to check if this user is in the database. So I'm going to say validate user underscore user is equal to authenticate, and then we need to call this authenticate, and inside the parentheses we're going to pass in username, and then we're going to pass in password. So we're going to say username is equal to username, and then we're going to say password is equal to password. So we're trying to actually authenticate and check if these users actually exist. So what we're going to say right here is so what authenticate does is that it accepts username and password, and then it checks the database to see if a user exists. If a user does not exist, it returns none. That is, if this particular user does not exist in database, it's going to return none. So we're going to now write a conditional and say if validate user is not none, that is, if this user exists, we now need to log in this user. We now need to use this login that we imported right here. So we're going to say login, and then in parentheses right here we're going to pass in request, and after passing in request we're going to pass in validate user. So what it's going to do is it's going to check the database and see if this user exists. If the user is not, if validate user is not known, that is, if this user exists, it's now going to log in this particular user. Now, after logging in the user, we want the users to be redirected to the home page. So what we're going to say is we're going to return, return redirect, and then we need to check the name that we give this particular URL. We give it home page, so we'll copy this, and then we'll go back to our views.py and say, okay, once this user has been logged in, return the user to the home page. So what we now need to do right here is, here we're saying if the user is not known, that is, if the user exists, then log in the user and redirects the user to the home page. But what if this user does not exist? So we're going to say else. We need to now pass in a message, an error message, and send to this particular view. So we're going to paste this and say error wrong user details, or users does not exist. So I'm going to say error wrong, we'll just say wrong user details, or user does not exist. So this is going to send an error message to the login page. Now right here we need to change this from register to login, because we're trying to send this error message to this login page. So we're going to save that. Now remember, the same thing we did right here for register is the same thing we need to do for login. We need to actually write some code that gets these messages from the backend. So I'm just going to copy this, Ctrl C, come to the login, and then we're going to put a BR tag here, and we will come down and paste this. So now if messages, we're going to say for message in messages, we're going to display the message right here. So we're now going to save this. Now there's one more thing we need to change. So in our register view right here, we've written code that actually registers the user, but we want to do it in such a way that when the user has been registered, we want the user to be redirected to the login page, so that the user can now be logged into the website, so that the user can now enter his details and be logged into the website. So right here, after creating the user right here, we need to redirect the user to that particular home page, to the login page rather, So let's just copy to the login page. So let's copy this and paste it here. So after creating this new user here, new user.save, we want you to redirect this person to the login page. Now we also need to pass in a message right here. We want to say messages.success, and inside here we'll pass in request, and we want the message, what message we want to be displayed in the front end is user successfully created. Go ahead and log in. So I'm going to say user successfully created, log in now. So once we save this, anytime a new user is created, this user is going to be redirected to the login page, and this message, this success message, user successfully created, login now, is going to be displayed. So let's go back to our login view. Here we've told Django that if whatever the person enters is a wrong password, then if is a wrong details, then we want you to redirect this person to the login page and display this error message. So let's just make sure everything is working, looks nice. Okay, so everything looks okay. Let's now go to our front end and test this out. So let's first try to enter wrong details. So let's enter wrong details, and let's see the error we get. So we can see the error we get, error wrong user details, or user does not exist. So right now we can see our code is working perfectly well, we're able to authenticate and check if this user actually exists. So what I want to do right now is I would like to log out of the Django admin dashboard. So if I reload here, I am not logged in. Now we are going to try to log in from the front end, and then let's try that. Because we created a super user earlier in this video, we know that we already have a user account named admin. So we're going to try to log in from this login page. Now if we come here, notice that we've been logged out of the admin dashboard, and here it's asking us to log in, but we're going to log in from the front end here. So I'm going to type in my username and password, and once I type that in, we can see we have been redirected to this home page. And if we go back to the admin dashboard and we refresh, we can see we have been directed to the dashboard because we have been logged in, or we logged in from the front end. So we can see our code is working perfectly fine, and we can see that immediately we logged in, we were redirected to this home page. So let's just check to see if we need to add any other thing. So the error message is working, everything is working fine. The user that we just logged in with came here and was validated successfully. So I believe that is all we are doing for this video. And yeah, there is one more thing we need to change. Right here where it is written register now, we're supposed to change this to login, because obviously it's supposed to log in, it's supposed to show on the register form. So we would say login, and we need to redirect this to the login URL. So we are going to come here and put URL login. So we are linking this to the login page, and we are also going to go to the login page and do the same thing. So right here we're going to put in URL, and then we're going to link this to the register page. And let's save this. We're doing this so that when we come to the home page and we hit register, it brings us to the register page, and when we hit login, it brings us to the login page. Let's just check to see if we need to add any other thing. So the error message is working, everything is working fine. The user that we just logged in with came here and was validated successfully. So I believe that is all we are doing for this video. We've talked about setting up the projects, we've talked about setting up the basic pages, which is the home page, the login page, and the register page. And we've talked about Django authentication and validation and user creation. Now in the next video, we're going to be talking about database issues and creating we're going to be talking about creating models basically, and the models are going to be what are going to be the way our database is going to be configured, and it's going to be the main way we are going to store all our to-dos that we are going to create in the database. So thank you for watching this video, guys. If this was helpful, please hit that like button, please subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to get notified whenever I post a new video. And please don't forget to share and subscribe, because it's going to help me a lot. So thank you for watching this video, and I'm going to see you in the next one where we're going to talk about our models. Thank you for watching.